wrote The Fourth Age as a different kind of technology book. I didn't want it to just be another book with somebody telling you their opinion about how the future was going to unfold. If you have a technical question about, say, a medical issue, you need the expertise of a doctor perhaps to inform you. But the kinds of technical issues that we're confronting as a species aren't ones that require any technical knowledge to understand. When people say they're worried about the robots taking over or about artificial intelligence becoming alive, that's really a philosophical question, not a technical one. At issue is a simple question, which is, are people machines? On my podcast about artificial intelligence, I ask artificial intelligence thinkers that question, and 95 out of 100 said, yes, of course people are machines. And it's that idea that is what lies underneath their predictions about what artificial intelligence can do. If, however, you're part of the 85% of readers that don't believe that, then what will happen with artificial intelligence is completely different. And so I wrote the book because I don't think anybody needs me to tell them whether I think I'm a machine or not. The question is, do you think you're a machine? And if you do, then it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. And if you don't, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. But it isn't a technical question. The question of artificial intelligence is a philosophical question. Nobody doubts what the technology can do. They only doubt what it is that people really are. Challenge with the question of robots and jobs is that it's very easy to see the jobs that can be lost, but nobody has the ability to see the ones that are going to be created. You don't have to go very far back in time for that. 25 years ago, when the consumer internet came out, people predicted the stockbrokers and the travel agents and the newspapers would all have great difficulty, and they were right. But nobody foresaw Airbnb and eBay and Uber and Etsy and all of the million different companies that were created, the 25 trillion US dollars in wealth. And so it's easy to be fearful because you can see the kinds of things that will be lost. But the point is that these technologies increase human productivity. And so they're going to create jobs we can't imagine. To answer the first part of the question, which is what's liable to vanish, the OECD did a study of this, and they think only 9% of jobs are going to be completely eliminated. These are jobs where two people would do the job exactly the same way, like a data entry person. They're jobs where it doesn't vary from day to day very much, like an order taker at fast food. The kinds of jobs that can't be replaced are ones that people would do differently and that require motion and mobility. Robots are only really good at tasks that require them to stay in place for a long time. Now, the second part of the question, which is what would you study to remain relevant in the future? This is a very good question. And I think the best way to think about it is go back in time. I'm 50 years old, and so I was in secondary school in the 1980s. And if I could go back and knew everything I know now, there's only one class I could have taken back then that would have been useful to me. That is typing. And so we see that it isn't so much that our schools teach occupations in particular, but the key skills you need in the coming age are the ability to teach yourself new things. That's the most important thing. To work in teams, to evaluate the quality of your own work. There are all of these skills that luckily humans are really good at. Mark Cuban, the entrepreneur, famously said he believes the first trillionaires in history will be from artificial intelligence. And if he were going back to enroll in college now, he would study philosophy of all things. And I think it's that. It's like the people I know that are most successful are passionate about what they do. And so I think the important thing is find out what you're passionate about, learn how to teach yourself new skills, always be learning, always be applying technology, and you'll never worry about a job. Moore's law is an observation made by Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel, about 53 years ago. He's still alive, by the way. But when he formed his law back then, it was just an observation. He said that the power of computers seemed to be doubling every 2 years and would probably continue to do it a little longer. Other people came along and said this had been going on for actually over a century, that even though computational technology had changed from mechanical to electromagnet to tubes. It never, ever altered the law that the power of computers doubles every 2 years. Now, what's even more fascinating is that other thinkers came along and said that all technology obeys a Moore's-like law. It doubles over a predictable period of time. It may not be 2 years, it may be 12 years or 16 years, but it doubles and it doubles and it doubles. Now, the big mystery is why this is, and nobody knows. If you figure it out, call the Nobel Committee because you'll win a Nobel Prize for it. But nobody knows why it is, but it's a very powerful thing. It says that while it took us 3,000 years to get from the abacus to the iPad, in just 25 years, we'll have something as far ahead of the iPad as it is ahead of the abacus, something none of us can even imagine. But I think it means something even more important, and that is that all technical problems, and believe me, there are many problems that aren't technical, all purely technical problems will be solved, because if they're technical problems, it stands to reason they have a technical solution. And if we don't have the technology today to solve it, just wait a few years and we'll have twice as much, and then wait a few years and we'll have twice as much. This gives me great hope into the future. I believe something very deeply, and that is, if a machine can do a job, forget whether we have a machine to do it, but if a machine can do a job, like you can imagine in the future, we may use drones to clean the windows of skyscrapers, of large buildings. If a machine can do a job, then if you make a person do that job, there's a word for that. And it's, in English, dehumanizing. Dehumanizing. To ask a human to do a job that a machine can do is to tell a human, put aside everything that makes you human, we just need you to be a machine until we invent a machine to do it. There are many things machines will never be able to do. I don't believe they'll ever be creative. They'll ever come up with ideas. They'll ever do anything like that. But there is a range of things they do very well. And just like no one would say, I'm not going to use a piece of equipment to dig a hole, I'm going to insist by using a shovel. Well, then you would have to say, well, why even use a shovel? That's a piece of automation technology as well. Why not use your hands? And the point is that humans learned a trick, which is to multiply what we're able to do by employing technology. And because of that, we have created the world around us. Now, I don't think the Mona Lisa would still be a piece of art if a machine had created it, because I wouldn't sit around wondering what was the artist thinking and what did the artist see and what was the artist trying to do. And so there are many things that I believe are always going to be human endeavors, and that's what humans should do. But if a machine can do it, then it's not fit for a human to do. Time, we think, genetically speaking, about 75,000 years ago, the humans were down to less than 1,000 mating pairs. Think about that, less than 1,000 pairs of humans left. And we were an endangered species by any definition. And yet somehow we didn't just make it to today, but along the way, we invented human rights and democracy, and we had the Italian Renaissance, and we made movable type, and we brought people out of poverty, and we ended torture as entertainment, and we've made all of these amazing strides and progress because we learned a trick, which is technology, and we use this to enable us to do a lot more. And along the way, we learned something very interesting, and that is that more people want to create than want to destroy. We know this. If it were the other way around, we would have made it from 1,000 mating pairs to today. But we're lucky in that most people want to build the world. More people want to make a better world. And yes, there's always a few people who abuse technology. But you could even take the internet as a recent example. You can come up with a big list of things that you can use the internet for to commit crimes and to scam people and all of the rest. And it's all true. But the internet also connected billions of people and lowered the cost of communication to zero and transformed society and all of the rest. And so we learned these other things. We learned that if you post a question online about a problem you have, perfect strangers who don't get paid or anything will take time to write you an answer. Nobody knew we were going to make the open source movement where programmers would write code that they would just share with the world for free. Nobody predicted we were going to make Wikipedia, the best encyclopedia in the world, all by volunteers. All of this shows that when technology comes out, a few people misuse it, but more people use it for good. And so no matter what happens on the bad side of the column, realize there's 6 billion more people out there trying to use the technology to better the world. And that's what gives me hope. And economics in the book, it is true for a number of reasons. Again, I wanted to try to be a guide to help people understand these technologies. And I didn't want to, again, just be somebody with an opinion and want you to believe what I believe. That isn't my goal at all. And I personally don't know what role politics will play in artificial intelligence. I worry that it is such a new area and it changes so quickly that there's no political system in the world that can adapt to that quickly. I don't know how you would ever regulate it. And that concerns me, but it doesn't paralyze me. And so I don't have any particularly good answers for that. With regard to economics, I try to stick to the basics, and I say that I don't work any harder than my great-grandparents worked. They worked very hard. Maybe I don't. And yet, I live a much more lavish life than they ever lived. And why would that be? It's because of technology. It's because 1 hour of my labor makes so much more than 1 hour of their labor ever did. I don't haul up water from the well. I just turn on the tap and get a drink. And that's what technology does economically. It increases human productivity. That's the only way any of us get ahead. We don't get ahead because we can work 3 times as many hours. We get ahead because we make the hours we work 3 times more productive. I think if technology does continue to double like this, which I believe it will, that economics will, that we're going to enter a world of great economic plenty for everyone, for everyone, for everyone. Because if human productivity went up 1,000-fold, if it really went up dramatically, that just changes economic theory. I temper that, though, slightly with the economist Maynard Keynes wrote an essay in the 1930s saying that in 100 years, that's basically our time, real GDP, real income would be up tenfold, and people would only work 15 hours a week. And the thing is he was right about the first part. He predicted accurately what income would be in 100 years. But he was wrong about the second part. We don't just work 15 hours a week, do we? What we learned along the way is that people will keep working because they want more things. They want a better quality of life. They want a bigger house and all of the rest of it. And so I do think that as productivity goes way up, human productivity, and great wealth is achieved, people still want to work as much as they do now, as shocking as that may seem. I wrote, it's called The Fourth Age, and in it, I talk about 3 times in the past that technology changed the direction of humanity. I mean, really changed it. Like, the first was when we got language. I think we're entering the fourth age. It's an era where these 2 tricks we've learned, artificial intelligence and robotics, will increase human productivity so dramatically, it will end poverty forever, dramatically. And so then you have to say, what happens after that? Is there a 5th age? And I do believe that. I think one day we're going to wake up in a world that we can't imagine any better than it is. And then what would we do? What would we do? And when I look up at the sky, I see a universe that really looks like it's waiting for us to pay a visit. And so I think a time will come when 1 billion humans live on 1 billion different planets. We'll send nanites, microscopic robots the size of grains of sand to them, and they'll transform them and create atmospheres. And we'll get on ships that we'll sleep on and for 50 years, and we'll go to them, and we'll make 1 billion new worlds where 1 billion Dantes can write their infernos, and 1 billion Mary Curie's can, invent or discover radium, and everyone will live to their maximum potential. And that's what I think the future of humanity is: 1 billion people on 1 billion planets. And so we've had 10,000 years of progress on this planet. Things have gotten better for 10,000 years, and all because of this trick we learned, technology. And I don't understand why some people say, well, yeah, it's been going on for 10,000 years, but it's stopping. And now we're going to wind down, and this is our heyday, this is our end, this is our swan song. And I don't believe that at all. I think our best days are ahead, and I believe my children will live to see them.